welcome to another episode of the Woldenburn podcast. My name is Emily and I am coming to you from Kentucky in the United States, where I live with my husband and our little boy. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. It's been, I think, about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 3 weeks since my last podcast episode. And I actually have a surprising amount of knitting to talk about today. I have a couple of finished objects to share with you, a number of different works in progress, a tale of woe on one of my projects, and I actually do have some acquisitions to share with you today. We found out a few weeks ago what the gender of the baby is that I'm currently pregnant with, and I talk more about that in a vlog video that I filmed earlier this week. I'm planning to publish it after this podcast comes out, so you'll probably see it next week if I can get my ducks in a row. But basically, I've been waiting to purchase any sort of yarn because, as you may know if you've been watching my podcast since the beginning of the year, I am working towards not purchasing any yarn this year until November timeframe, just to kind of really work through some of my yarn stash. But one of the exceptions that I have for that was once we found out what the gender of the baby was, I wanted to purchase some yarns to make some baby things. However, I know that baby kid knitting is not everybody's cup of tea, so I have done a separate podcasty vlog video talking all about my plans for knitting for the baby and the different yarns that we got and all of that fun stuff. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. That video is going to be coming very soon. However, when we were at the yarn store, I went with my mother-in-law, and when we were at the yarn store, they were having a clearance sale on some other lovely yarn, and so I grabbed the last couple of skeins of it in the most perfect shade of blue, but we will talk more about that later. So I do have some acquisitions to share, and yeah, and then if we have time, I'm hoping to, again, keep this shorter. So if we have time, I'll do a little bit of a life update at the end, and that'll be the video. So with that being said, let's dive right in. Let me show my finished objects. First off, I have my March pair of socks. If you have not been following along, I am participating in the Dandelion and Dogwood, I think it's 24 and 24, their sock knit along that they're doing, and this was the pair of socks that I knitted up for March. They are knit out of Patton's Croy sock yarn in the Northern Lights colorway, and I just did a pair of shorty socks. It's so hard to see these. I never block my socks, but I do sometimes think it would be nice to have a sock blocker just to show them on the podcast because they do look a little wonky. But yeah, so I knit these a little bit differently than I typically knit my hand knit socks for myself. I still used my standard needle size, which is a US size 1 or 2.25 millimeter needle. However, because Patton's Croy tends to be a much thicker sock yarn, I only cast on 52 stitches, and then I knit the ribbing and the cuff or leg area. I think I did about 7 or 8 rounds of ribbing, and then about maybe 10 or 12 rounds of the cuff, and then I did a shadow wrap heel, which is a version of a short row heel, and then after the heel I decreased 4 stitches down to, so that I was doing 48 stitches for the rest of the foot. And yeah, it works pretty well. They fit my feet much better than the rest of the Patton's Croy socks that I have knit for myself. They're a lot snugger without being uncomfortable. And then I just did a wedge toe like I typically do for my socks, and yeah, they're quite lovely. The one thing, I started these with like 10 days left to the month of March because, if you don't know, we got sick in March and I lost about a week's worth of knitting, and the other sock projects that I had were full-length socks and I just didn't think I could get them done in time. So I emergency cast on a pair of shorty socks to just whip up and get done because I really want to do it where I finish at least one pair of socks per month. And so I didn't want to I've got a streak going now. I had January socks and February socks, and I didn't want to like fall off the bandwagon for March. And now I've got March socks done, so I have to do some in April. But anyway, for the sake of speed, I did the shadow wrap heel, and I like it. I think it fits me better than most short row heels. However, I find that short row heels in general just don't seem to fit my feet as well as a good old classic heel flap and gusset. So going forward, I'm going to try and make sure that I start my socks early enough that I don't need to do a shadow wrap heel. That is about all that I have to say about these. I am very glad to have another skein of yarn out of my stash. I used every little smidge of this except for like, I don't know, like a piece. So I'm thrilled about that. And when Hobby Lobby clearanced out a bunch of their Patons Croy sock yarn, I got several different skeins. I got a sweater's quantity of one color, which I really want to knit that sweater. This is why I'm trying to knit through my stash, because I have so many like different beautiful colorways of yarn that I really want to knit with, but then I just get distracted with other stuff and it just doesn't happen. So I bought several single skeins of the Patons Croy sock yarn just to make socks with, and so I think I've used 2 of them, maybe 3, and I've still got a few more, so I'm really, really happy to have one of those done. The next finished object is one that it's a very, very, very long time in the making. Technically, I think I cast this on, it would have been in 2022, which is, you know, 2 years ago now, depending on when I cast it on. But I have finally finished this little knit baby blanket. I don't know the exact dimensions of it, but I cast this on and I was intending it to be a scrap project. I had like a skein and a half of this Heartland, Lion Brand Heartland yarn. I can't remember the exact colorway. It's like Olympic blue or something. I can't remember. But then I ran out of yarn and it wasn't as big as I wanted it to be. And so then it just sat and sat and sat and sat until finally at the end of last year, I finally purchased another skein of the Heartland yarn to finish this off. And the other reason why it has been such a long-term project is just because for the longest time it was my emergency car knitting project. So it just sat in the car and I would knit on it like maybe once a month or something, because usually I would remember to bring a project with me. But it was just kind of my backup in case I didn't bring one and then I suddenly felt like knitting. So it's hardly been worked on in the last year plus, but especially once I ran out of yarn, it was just sitting there and I honestly forgot all about it because it was in the car for the longest time. But then yes, I finally purchased that last skein of yarn and I was intending to use up the whole thing, but then I was knitting on it and I was like, I think this is big enough. And it's not a huge blanket. I don't think I can reach it. You can see just the tiniest bit right there. I knit a big like adult size lap blanket out of the Lion Brand Heartland yarn in a brown colorway. Can't remember the exact name. But it really stretched and grew and got even bigger once I finished it and we were using it. And my husband would take it and he'd pull it up here and tuck his feet under and like stretch it all the way out. And you know, it got bigger. So what I did is I counted half of the number of stitches, half the width of stitches of that blanket, and that's what I cast on for this one. So I'm hoping that this one will kind of stretch and grow as well. And if not, it's the perfect little like, sometimes in the morning my toddler, my 1.5-year-old, he wants to just kind of sit on my lap and like snuggle for a bit, and so then he'll put his head on my chest and I'll just wrap this around his shoulders and it's perfect for that. So it's just kind of a little snuggly snuggle blanket. But yes, I'm very happy to have this done. As I said, it has been probably like 1.5 years, if not more, that has been just sitting in a project bag, and I'm super happy to have that project bag fee again. It was this one. But yes, so that's done. I think, if I remember correctly, I cast on about 81 stitches and I was using a US size 7 needle, which was the same size of needle that I used for our other blanket over there. It's so backwards when you try to like point to things behind you on the camera, like it's just weird. I really should stop trying to do that. But yeah, so I used a US size 7 needle and I love it. It's a nice, cozy, completely in garter stitch. I actually just finished weaving in the ends this morning so that I could share it on the podcast because we've just been using it for the last week. Just with the tails all hanging out everywhere. That is all that I have as far as finished objects. And then I have several different works in progress to share with you. The first one, let's go ahead and just talk about my socks that I'm working on. I am still working on these beautiful socks. I think I'm getting close to being done with this first one. This is why I knit shorty socks, because full-length socks take forever. They don't, but it's like twice as much knitting as a shorty sock. So I can finish a pair of shorty socks in about the same amount of time as it takes me to knit one pair or one sock of a full-length sock. But this is knit out of the Lion brand Sock Ease yarn, which is a discontinued yarn. They temporarily brought it back, I think last year, and I was able to purchase a couple of skeins of it. And it's just this beautiful, it's a very narrow self-striping yarn, which I actually really love. I think it looks very different. I'm kind of annoyed about this right here that you can maybe see. It was just like a fault in the yarn. It's like almost like some of the plies broke, and so they just tied together like two of the strands. It was like part of the strand of the yarn. I don't know if you can see that at all. I hate it when that happens in yarn, and if I thought about it, if I'd been paying attention, I would have cut it out and just woven in the ends, but I didn't. So it just looks like I have a very messy floof on my sock. But maybe I can trim those down or try and tuck that onto the inside of the sock. That's probably what I'll do. But this is my classic sock, oops, I bumped the tripod. My classic sock recipe, which is US size 1, 2.25 millimeter, 56 stitches. And then I did a heel flap and gusset, just a slip stitch, heel flap and gusset. The one thing that I would have done differently is if I had realized that I was going to turn these into full-length socks, I would have done probably twice as much ribbing, but I was going back and forth like the whole time trying to decide if I was going to do shorty socks or full-length socks. And so I only did, I think, like 10 rounds of ribbing, and I definitely prefer a longer ribbing when it's a full-length sock, but by the time I was like, because I got to like here and I was still trying to decide if I was just going to do short socks or not, and then I just kept going and I didn't want to rip it out and redo it, so it's not a big deal. I'll just match it on the second sock and we'll go from there. But yeah, so I'm very close to being able to start the toes. I think maybe another inch or so, and then I'll be able to work on the toe of the sock, and then I'll have the first sock done, and I'm really excited about it. So we'll see. These may end up being my April socks if I can get them done. If not, I'll cast on another pair of shorty socks. One of the things that I love about this knit along is that they let you use WIPS, so works in progress, and so I can start a pair of socks. If I'm doing a more complicated pair of socks, I can start it 1 month and then it can be the sock for like 3 months later, and I so appreciate that. That's what has made this knit along something that I feel like I can achieve rather than having to knit an entire pair of socks every single month. It means that I can do some of the other knitting patterns, sock patterns that I've been wanting to do, but I can spread them out over a few months without having to feel super rushed about it. Also, I will say, I know my lighting keeps changing. We had a bunch of thunderstormy stuff yesterday, and then today it's very overcast, and so there'll be like a big patch of gray clouds, and then there's a little peep of whiter clouds and blue sky, and then gray clouds again. So it's nice in that it's not like sunlight in and out and in and out, but the lighting does keep changing. So hopefully that doesn't bother too much. So that's that project. I do have my Mercury socks, which, oh, I forgot to mention, both of these project bags are gorgeous. They're made by Susan of Delightful Works. I'll have her Etsy shop, link down below. This was one that I got in a kit from Mystery Mouse Yarn Co. And I haven't cast on the socks. It was a sock set and stitch markers and project bag. And I haven't cast on those socks from that kit yet, but I couldn't wait to use the bag. It's just the cutest little thing. I absolutely love it. And this little mole who's reading his newspaper is so cute. I love it so much. I've slowly been working on the Mercury socks that I cast on out of this Barocco vintage sock in the rhubarb colorway. And I don't have the ball band anymore. But it's a blend of acrylic, wool, and nylon. And it may be my new favorite sock yarn. I absolutely love how the socks that I've knit for my husband have been holding up. They still look basically brand new. And so I'm except for stuff that I already have in my stash, going forward, any sock yarn, any socks that I knit for my husband, I'm going to try and just purchase more of the Barocco vintage sock base because it just looks so good and it's fun to knit with. Yeah, so I have been working on knitting a pair of Mercury socks, Mercury shorty socks, which the Mercury socks pattern is is designed by Kim Drotar. And it's this really simple, pretty lace pattern. And I love how it looks. It's just, well, first things first, it's a free pattern. I finally actually wrote down what the lace stitch pattern was because I personally hate having to constantly refer to either my phone or iPad or computer or something. And so if I don't have a physical pattern printed out or written down, it takes me so long to do it. So I finally got it written down and immediately worked like this much of the sock. It was just sitting just past the heel for ages. Well, part of that was because I had to put all the sock projects aside to finish my March socks. But this is the one other pair of socks that I did a shadow wrap heel on because I just didn't feel like doing the heel flap and gusset, and I should have done a heel flap and gusset, but it's fine. I'll just do it going forward. And this one I switched. I was working on DPNs, which is my preferred method of knitting socks, but I have found that because I try to squeeze in knitting sometimes when I'm around my toddler when he's up and about, if he didn't take a very long nap or if I just didn't get the chance to knit much during the nap because I'm filming a podcast or doing household stuff. I will try and do some knitting when he's up and about. And I have found that it is way more difficult to just, if he's being naughty and I need to go in and take care of that, or if he gets hurt and he needs me to come and get him or something like that, or if he needs help with something, it is much more difficult to just take a pair of socks that are on DPNs and throw them down without risking losing stitches everywhere. And so that's why I switched this one to Magic Loop so that I can work on it a bit more. However, the problem I have with that is that these are my Haya Sharp US size 1 needles, and they are very sharp. And sometimes he likes to kind of like jump and lunge on my lap and stuff while I'm trying to knit, and it's given me a couple of hair-raising moments where I'm like, you're gonna get a needle in your eyeball. So that's also part of why I haven't been working on these as much. So what I need to do is I need to get my Leica wood needles and switch one of my sock projects to that. And the other thing too is it's just easier to do like vanilla socks when I'm working on stuff around him rather than something with a pattern that I have to pay attention to which row that I'm on so I don't lose count and blah blah blah. But I'm working on those very slowly. They may not end up being a finished sock project until like July, but that's okay. We're just gonna keep working on them. Okay, now we're in a patch of blue sky, so we'll see how long that lasts. And it's like this, the lighting is like perfect. Okay, so I've been in a little bit of a cast on mood, and so I've cast on 2 projects for kids, which are in my other video, and then I have 2 other, well technically 3 other new cast-ons. So let me just quickly talk about this one. This one's a test knit that I'm doing for Emily of the Blue Mouse Knits, and it is a pair of mittens, which I'm very excited about because I haven't actually done any mitten knitting. And I haven't done very much. I'm just working on the first one. But it's going to be a nice, cute little mitten pattern. It's knit out of, these are two Hobby Lobby yarns. The green is the Yarn Bee Yarn ID. I think it's in the colorway Bonnie Lass. I think that's that one. The white is I think it's Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek in like cream or something. And it's just a really cute little stripy pattern. I haven't worked on these in a few days and I need to get back to it. The deadline's, I think I have like 9 or 10 days left and you only have to finish one mitten, so I've got plenty of time. But yeah, so I'm working on those. US size 11 for the needles. The pattern calls for size 10.5, but I had to go up a needle size to get gauge, which is very weird for me. Typically I have to go down like 3 needle sizes to get gauge, but for whatever reason with this one I had to go up, and it may just be the yarn. I'm not sure. So I'm working on those. I'm holding that in my Celtic Thunder tote bag that I got when my husband and I were able to go to a Celtic Thunder concert in Nashville 2 years ago. I was pregnant. I think I was pregnant with my toddler at the time. We haven't gotten to any sort of events since having a baby. It just doesn't work. But Celtic Thunder is one of my all-time favorite music bands, so I was really happy to get, I got a tote bag and like a keychain, because I had the realization if I got a tote bag, it was a knitting project bag. Okay, so then I have I need to switch this out into like proper, this is just a random tote bag. I have 2 projects in here. One is a new cast on, as I mentioned, and we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about my little bit of a Tale of Woe project. So I have talked about this project several times. This is my Crescendo Summer Top that is a pattern designed by Sophie of the Knit Pearl Girl, and I have been knitting it out of the Mystery Mouse Yarn Co. in the Jessica Fletcher colorway. And I've been talking about how I've been dying to knit on it, and I wasn't knitting on it because I was working on test knit, and then I got the test knit done, and then I put a bunch of work on this. I was so excited to work on it. And then I got to the point where I was ready to split for the sleeves, and so I split for the sleeves, and I was like, we need to try this on because I've been kind of nervous. It was just looking quite large. Yeah, it's like way too big. So it doesn't look too bad. It's kind of hard to tell because I didn't knit very much of the body because I was like, I'm just nervous about this. I don't really want to keep knitting on it until I've tried it on. So you can't really see because it's such a similar color to my shirt. But it's just really big. I don't know if I can scooch back maybe and show you. Like you can see, maybe, I don't know. There's just a ton of extra fabric in the yoke, and this is a round yoke sweater. And actually now it might be getting too bright outside. Oh, come on, that might be a little better. Anyway, it's a round yoke sweater. I originally test knit this pattern, but the test knit was done, well, technically she did 2 test knits. This pattern took like a year plus to come out. The first test knit was done in fingering weight yarn, which was the one that I tested. And so I didn't bother with like swatching or anything. I just picked the same size, the same everything, even though the final pattern came out as a DK weight. And so I think I just picked like the same bust size or whatever it was. I don't know. It's just big. And I can't remember if for the previous one, if I intentionally picked a slightly smaller size, or maybe it fits me better because I, at the time, was a smaller bust size. And so it just kind of stretches, because my upper chest area is quite a bit smaller than my full bust area. And so if you pick, Holly from Mystery Mouse Yarn Co. was talking about this in one of her videos here recently, and it was like a light bulb moment. She was talking about how if you pick the bust size this, if you pick a size based off of your full bust size for round yoke sweaters in particular, round yoke designs in particular, then a lot of times you can end up having a lot of excess fabric up in this area because this is a lot smaller in measurement than your full bust measurement. And that has definitely been true for this project. So I'm going to be frogging it, and my plan is instead I'm gonna use this yarn, this gorgeous yarn, to knit a ranunculus, which is a pattern by Knit Cafe Midori Hirose. And I think it's gonna, I had that realization, like that thought, and I was like, that is absolutely perfect. Why didn't I do that to begin with? Because I think the other part of it could be, is just that this is a 100% superwash merino DK weight yarn, and it's a little bit of a plumper, like fuller, I don't know exactly how to describe it, heavier DK weight yarn. Even though it has like the same amount of yardage, I think it's just floofier than some of the other DK weight yarns that I've worked with, and so that could have contributed to it and end up being big. But yeah, I had the thought of turning it into a ranunculus, and then it kind of eliminated any what's the word that I'm looking for? Disappointment or frustration at having gotten this far on it and now needing to rip it out, because I was gonna just keep going and I was gonna keep doing it, and I was just like, no, Emily, you will not be happy with it if it's massively too big. Just don't do it. So I'm just gonna rip it out and turn it into a ranunculus, which I've been wanting to knit like 3 more versions of that pattern anyway, so it all works out. Which I'm very pleased about that, but I wanted to wait and talk about it and just be like, look, tales of woe happen to all of us. So that's where that project is at. And then this next project is super duper fun. Actually, these next 2 projects are very fun, and they're both out of yarn from the same hand-dyed yarn company. So I have finally cast on another Tulsa tee, which is a pattern by Rebecca of the Crayabea podcast, and I have been wanting to knit another one. I knit one, the DK weight version, out of the Drops Bell yarn, which I'm not super happy with how that one is, but I think that most of that is just because the neckline has stretched out quite a bit, and my plan is to go in with some elastic thread and just thread it through the neckline and cinch it up and pull it in a little bit, and I think that will sort out my problem. But I've been wanting to knit, again, several different versions of this because I have the yarn for it in my stash. So I finally cast one on, and it is in the most cheerfully, beautifully happy yarn color you've ever seen. It's gonna look a little bit weird and be hard to show because I decided to not start with the ribbing. I just cast on the appropriate number of stitches and carried on, and I'm going to pick up stitches and do the ribbing afterwards. So it's kind of hard to see right now, but, and also my light is crazy and so it's really blown out. But I am knitting this out of this gorgeous colorway of yarn, which is the, I believe it's Coral Reef colorway by Emily of Night Bright Yarn Co. And I have been wanting to cast this on so badly. She gifted it to me last year as sort of like a housewarming, a cheeky little gift, and I have been itching to cast on, and it took me the longest time to decide what to knit with it. And so then I was kind of, I can't remember if this was after my crescendo summer top flopped or what, but I was just like, I'm just gonna knit a fingering weight Tulsa tee, so that is what I'm doing, and I am absolutely loving it. I'm in the raglan increases phase, so I've gotten all the short rows done. Hallelujah. I know they're necessary, but they're just so fiddly. And so now I'm just kind of in the fun little increase phase, and then at some point here, eventually, I'll be able to split for sleeves and do the body, and I'm very excited about it. So it looks so lovely. The lighting is completely wrong. It's blowing it out so much, but it's almost making it fluorescent looking, which is not the case, but I absolutely love it, and I'm so excited to work on it and have like a cute little, realistically, if I wear this in warmer weather, it'll be like early spring, like February, it just gets too hot and humid, and my temperature levels have been all wonky since being pregnant the first time, and I'm pregnant again, so I run a lot hotter than I used to. I used to be somebody who would, like, when I was dating my husband, when my husband and I were dating, I would wear like a full-on wool cardigan in his parents' house because they would keep it so cold with the AC, and I was freezing the whole time. Then I got pregnant, and now it's like the exact opposite, and it's kind of funny, but very early days, super, super happy with this. And the final project that I have to talk about today is a very exciting, lovely project that I've been putting the majority of my knitting time into recently, and I'm holding it in this wonderful bag, which was a gift from Susan of Delightful Works, and this is a sample knit for Emily of Night Bright Yarn Co. And it is knit out of the most perfect selection of Eastery, springy colors. I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can kind of show you all the colors in here without dumping them everywhere. Well, actually, I've already used at least a little bit of every single color, so. Oh gosh. Ugh. This baby bump is getting so big that bending over and getting things is getting challenging. So I am sample knitting the Stella Quilt Cushion, which is a pattern by Laura of Penrose Knits. And I am sample knitting it out of Emily from Night Bright Yarn Co. I'm using her yarns to make a sample of it. Isn't this looking so good? Oh, I'm so happy with this. It has been a very fun project. There are a number of different techniques that you use for like picking up stitches and doing like the next square. Some of them I like better than others. But overall, it has been a very fun knit. It's all squishy garter stitch. Just look at these colors. They're like the most perfect springy colors. And I'm really close to being done. I only have the last strip here of the top, and then I have to do the back, but the back is all just in one color, and it's just a lot of knitting, so it'll be easy peasy once I get this front panel done. And Emily has dyed up 8 different colorways, and this is all in fingering weight yarn held double, and I love it. It's like I'll work with it and I'll be like, ooh, maybe this colorway is my favorite, and then I'm like, no, this colorway is my favorite. This pink, I did not think I was going to absolutely love it as much as I do. It's like the most perfect shade of like bubblegum pink without being too bubblegummy. It's so beautiful. I was knitting with it to do these 2 squares, and the whole time all I could think was like, this would make the most adorable little like spring, little bit of lace or a little bit of texture like knitted top. It would be amazing. I absolutely love it. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I've been really, really thoroughly enjoying this project. Like I said, the majority of my knitting time has been spent working on this. Also because it's a sample knit, but also because it's just fun. The one thing I will say is something that I have noticed, and particularly with this project, is that I am a much looser knitter than I thought I was, and depending on the pattern designer, sometimes I have to go down a lot of needle sizes. Like a lot. Case in point, the pattern calls for I believe it's a 4mm or a US 6 needle. I'm knitting this on a US 2. So it's just, I think it's part of that may also be just the garter stitch is throwing it off and making it a little bit harder to get gauge, but yeah. Overall, absolutely love it. Can't wait to get the last strip done, and then that'll be it. I have a few ends to weave in. For the most part, I've been weaving them in per row because you can't pick up for the next square without weaving it in. Now it's getting really bright outside. but I do have a few. I'm actually at the stopping point on this row because I just finished it, and so I need to weave in the ends from this row so I can pick up and knit the last row. But yeah, I am loving it. I cannot wait to get it done. Highly recommend both Emily's yarn and the pattern. Like I said, if you've looked through and done the Stella Quilt Cushion pattern, most of the pickup methods are fine, but I personally don't like method B. And if you looked at the pattern, you'll know what I mean. But I accidentally messed it up because I keep reading it wrong, which is, it's more my fault than anything else. But I had started into, oh no, that's right. So on these last two squares, you're supposed to use method D for both of them for picking up. And I got to just into the white here and realized that I had done this back here, this whole section wrong. So I was just like, can't do it, can't leave it. So I had to rip out this whole section of white and then this whole pink and then this whole pink strip to redo it. And I was just frustrated because it's easy, but it does take longer than you would think it would take you. Like each square probably does take like maybe an hour. Like it's not a small amount of knitting time. But I'm loving it. I think it's going to be so cozy and lovely once it's done. And yes, I just like this pink. This pink is like the most perfect bubblegummy pink color, and I just can't get over it. I've mentioned that I'm in a little bit of a pink phase this year, and I think it's so cute. And then this other lighter color, like, I was looking at it, I was like, how could you make something that would like, what would you make that would pair these together? Like a little stripy top? Like, ooh, that would be cute. I can't. These are all like the springy, pretty springy. Oh, there we go. I was gonna say, we're supposed to have 8. I don't know if I can do this at all. I'm showing all of the colors, but they're just, it's like spring and a handful of yarn. I love it. So that is the final work in progress that I have to share with you today. Let's quickly talk about these acquisitions. I have a feeling this episode is going to be like 45 minutes long, per usual. But quickly, the yarn that we were able to get on super sale. Oh, this is not the most perfect blue. I love blue so much. I was able to get 2 skeins of it. This is Shepherd's Wool, Stonehenge Fiber Mill, made in Michigan. It's the color turquoise. It is a worsted weight yarn, but it says it's a worsted spun, which from what I understand, you've got worsted spun and I don't remember what the other spinning method is, but worsted spun creates a lighter, loftier yarn from what I understand. So this is a worsted weight yarn, but it has 250 yards per 100 grams, which is pretty high for a worsted weight yarn. And it's in the colorway turquoise, and it's just, I have been looking for a good like royal blue color that's like not too purple, not too tealy, like just the perfect royal blue color. And this was it. I saw it, and there were only 2 skeins left because, like I said, it was on clearance. I got it for $9 a skein, I think, instead of $15. And so there were only 2. So then I've been trying to figure out what I'm gonna make with it because I really didn't want to go back and get some more in a different colorway. I was like, this blue is just so perfect. I want to keep it just this blue. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do a ranunculus. I know, another ranunculus. Because my plan is that it'll be almost like more of a vest. Because it's going to have like cap sleeves, no sleeves, like super short sleeves. Because there's only 200, or I only have a total of 500 yards. But I think that that's plenty to do the body and maybe just some tiny little like ribbing for the sleeve edges, I think we'll be okay. However, this is 100% wool. It is non-superwash actually, which part of me is like a little nervous because I'm like, ooh, I have worked very, very little with non-superwash yarn. And so it's like, it's a little rustic, but not really. Like I'm totally comfortable with it, like putting it here. So it's not going to be like a spring, summer sort of a top. However, I actually found that I wore my short sleeve sweaters probably more than any of my other sweaters over the fall winter this year, because I just layered them over top of long sleeve shirts, and it actually worked better because, again, I've been running really warm being pregnant and then nursing and everything else. And so that was actually almost more comfortable. And then if I was still a little chilly, I would just put a cardigan on over top. And so I realized that this would be perfect. I can just do like a really short sleeved little ranunculus top and wear it almost like a vest, either over top of dresses or, because that was the other thing I did. I would layer my short sleeve sweaters over top of dresses, and that was really lovely. And so it would definitely be like a fall winter thing because, again, 100% wool. This is going to be warm as all get out. But yeah, expect to see this very soon because I'm itching to cast it on because it's just, I love this color so much, and like I just know it's gonna look really lovely on me, and I'm excited. So that is all the knitting content that I have. As I said, I'm sure this video is going to be very long, so let's quickly do a little bit of a life update and then we'll close things out before it gets massively long. I just can't shrink down the amount that I talk about knitting. Like, I didn't even talk about all my other acquisitions and these two projects here, which are like baby kid knits. Like, I just like talking about knitting. So, life, everything's been going good. We're completely, fully recovered from being sick. I've been doing pretty well. It's been the weirdest thing. And like, I expected this to come with a second pregnancy, but it has been a slight shock that my baby bump has gotten so bumpy so quickly this pregnancy. Like, I'm almost at the point now where my bump is either as big or very close to being as big as my bump was at the end of my pregnancy with my last pregnancy. And I've still got like 20 weeks left, not quite. More like 18 or something, but I'm like hardly halfway. And so it's just blowing my mind a little bit how pregnant I am already. It has made things very challenging in the clothing department. Like, so many things stopped fitting way faster than they did last time. I'm down to like literally maybe 5 things that I can wear in my wardrobe. So I've been trying to do like some panic researching, trying to find some clothes that will fit, because for whatever reason, when I get pregnant, or at least for both my pregnancies so far, I get very, very sensitive about things being tight in my chest area, on my stomach area. My tummy gets so sensitive. One of my worst pregnancy symptoms last time was the heartburn, acid reflux, and if I had anything that was like the slightest bit too snug in the wrong spot, I would just feel so sick and so uncomfortable, have so much heartburn going on. And so I can still fit a lot of the clothes in my wardrobe. However, I can't wear them because I'm so sensitive and delicate. Like, that's the thing I tell my husband. I'm just like, it's so frustrating. I just feel like I'm so delicate so much earlier than I was in my last pregnancy. I laugh about it, but there have been a few challenging moments about it where I'm just like frustrated that everything seems to be happening so much faster this time, and it's just throwing me off. I was not prepared for it. Which is like to be expected. There's always something with pregnancy that you're just like, oh, I didn't expect that. But I got a little spoiled last time. I never had to buy any specific like maternity wear. I made myself a few things, and then I didn't have to mess with that because my bump never got that big. And again, like, my baby Tam was a very small baby. He was only 5 pounds, 12 ounces. So like, my bump didn't need to grow as much because he was just very tiny. And I have a feeling that is not going to be the case for this baby. I'm hoping for a solid, healthy 7 to 9 pounder. That's what I'm hoping and praying for, is just a good, healthy baby. But also my body is much more used to being pregnant and knows what's going on, and so it's just like and oh, it's been so weird because now I'm having to like try and research and find actual maternity clothes. And then the other part that I was making it challenging for myself is I was trying to only find or purchase maternity clothes that were also going to be nursing friendly. And I've just realized that that can't be my focus because there are so few options for that. It's a very, very limited range of things that will fit me that are both maternity and nursing friendly. And I need clothing. Like, I need to have things to wear. So I'm trying to just do find some simple little like maternity dresses that are going to be summer friendly and all that stuff. So that's kind of been my biggest like life thing going on right now. Cause yeah, pregnancy just, it kind of takes over your world to a degree, at least for me, where it's like things feel achier and you have to be more careful about different things. And I've had a lot of issues with my hip hurting. I think I've mentioned it before that I injured it last fall and then it kind of got better, but then the second I got pregnant again, all of the hormones and stuff going on, it has caused me so much grief, this pregnancy. And so it's gotten a lot better since I hit my second trimester. First trimester, it was terrible, but second trimester has been much better. And so there'll be several days in a row where it's perfectly fine. And then randomly one day, oh, I sat wrong and now my hip is dying. And it's just, there's those little things with pregnancy that they add a little challenge to life sometimes. But overall, everything's going good. With ultrasound, baby is looking fine and healthy and growing and everything's good, which is the most important thing. It's just healthy baby, healthy pregnancy, safe labor and delivery and all that fun stuff. But that's about it as far as what's been going on. We've been getting some gorgeous spring weather, but then we got the storms yesterday and so now it's cold again today. It's supposed to be cold for the next like 2 or 3 days, which is fine. It's fine, but I was just so enjoying the 70-degree plus weather where we could just like sit outside in the yard. There was one evening this last weekend, it was like magical. I was just sitting out in the chair, I was doing some knitting, I was reading a Golden Age murder mystery book, and my husband was like working in the shed doing his manly stuff, and our toddler was just kind of running in and out, going in the shed, hanging out with his dad for a bit, and then coming out, saying hi to me, then running around in the yard, and it was just breezy and lovely, and we did that for like 2 or 3 hours or something, and I was just like, this is why people have backyards for their houses. This is amazing. So that was absolutely lovely. It was such a good evening, or late afternoon, and it just made me so excited for later once it's more consistently warm. And I know it's gonna get hot, but once all the leaves come back in the trees, the majority of our backyard is in the shade, and so I have a feeling we're going to be able to just hang out in the backyard and just relax, and it's going to be amazing. So anyway, I hope that all of you are doing very well. I'd love to know what projects you're planning to work on for this spring, and what sort of things you're getting up to, gardening, what books you're reading, all those fun sorts of things. Thank you so much for listening to me blather on in this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye!